Just how high did Tank Dell climb in our latest Dynasty ADP? We're talking about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is former NFL scout Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, we've got new ADP. It's your favorite time of the month.
There we go. Let's dig right in.
We're going to talk about the top two rounds today, and we got a little movement in round one and a lot of shakeup in round two. So let's get to it. Number one overall is Justin Jefferson. No surprise there. Even with that injury, he has remained the wide receiver one and the top player overall in single quarterback Dynasty ADP. Of course, this is from dynastyleaguefootball.com. He's the number one guy. Jamar Chase is the number two. The 102 and the wide receiver two. Those two have held those spots for really months now with no change. We'll get to the names after Jefferson and Chase very soon, Matt, but do you think the rest of them, do you think the pack is catching up to Chase and Jefferson?
Maybe a little, because neither one of them have excelled or produced like the top asset in Dynasty football. Are you wavering at all on Jefferson at one? I mean, we haven't seen him play, and he's a free agent after the year. Not that worries me, but his quarterback's a free agent after the year. I mean, I'm not super concerned, but would you still gladly take him at 1-1?
I would. He's still my 1-1. I don't think he's a free agent after the season though, right?
Oh, no. I was thinking I got my wires crossed there.
Okay. Yeah. Cousin certainly is. So yeah, plenty of questions there for the Vikings offense. But no, I mean, I still have Jefferson as the one. I still have Chase as the two. To answer my own question, I think the gap between Jefferson and Chase and everybody else is getting smaller. I mean, we're seeing huge production from CeeDee Lamb, from Amon-Ra St. Brown, from A.J. Brown, and it's probably not surprising that those are the next three guys in line. Lamb at 3 overall. That's up 2 spots from last month. Amon-Ra St. Brown up 4 spots from the 8 to the 4 overall. And A.J. Brown actually somehow lost a couple of spots. He drops to 5 overall, but I think most would agree that those three guys are tightly packed into that tier. And again, I do think that tier is getting closer and closer to Chase and to Jefferson.
Yeah, I can't fight you on that at all. I mean, they're all very talented. They're all in very good situations, and they're having great years. I love the Lamb usage. St. Brown's just so consistent. A.J. Brown for me was my 3, a month ago, and maybe I'd have him at 4, but I think you have to have him behind Lamb at this point. But I have very little reservations about any of those guys.
You did bring up an interesting note with Kirk Cousins being not only injured, but also about to become a free agent. You look at the quarterbacks of these 5 guys, obviously Cousins / question mark, right? For the Vikings. And then Burrow, obviously injured himself, but locked in for next year and beyond. Dak Prescott in Dallas, Jared Goff in Detroit, and Jalen Hurts in Philly. So, if that margin gets thin enough, then quarterback becomes a tiebreaker, and maybe we do see Justin Jefferson start to lose a little bit of value compared to these other 4 guys.
Maybe. I mean, if they were to throw a rookie in there, or a Sam Howell situation, like where like, oh, what are they doing? But
Yeah,
you're right. The other four are really stable, which is nice.
Let's go a little bit deeper here in the first round. Another player who lost a couple of spots is Bijan Robinson. He is still the RB1 in Dynasty. He's now 6 overall. He was 4 last month and got as high as 3 in this ADP. I think this is right, not only to still have him as the RB1, but to have him falling behind the 3 receivers where he was once ahead of Lamb, St. Brown, and Brown. How do you feel about this spot for Bijan? And if you're in a startup, is this where you're considering him?
Yeah, more and more, I'd have a hard time making my first pick a running back, to be very honest with you. And there's a receiver that's a little bit down this list that I would have in the 6th spot. Well, we'll bring him up when we get to him. But I think he's definitely still running back 1. I do think his usage is pretty darn good lately. I think the Arthur Smith stuff might be close to behind us, and that he should be getting the football like we want. And he's just such a good player.
Yeah, Algier actually even fell behind Cordarrelle Patterson in usage last Sunday. So maybe a good sign finally for Bijan Robinson. Tyreek Hill is the 7th overall player. He loses 1 spot from 6 to 7. That makes him the wide receiver 6. I mean, it's hard to put him much lower on this list, given the insane production we've seen from him really throughout the season. But you also look at him as a player who's almost certain to fall down this list as soon as the offseason begins.
Yeah, I mean, you've taught us that over the years. I mean, guys like him don't maintain value over the offseason. You forget about watching him every Sunday, how unbelievably good he is, and what he's doing is historic. But it's hard to invest this premium of an asset into somebody his age that maybe only has 2 years left.
Again, Tyreek Hill down 1 spot. So that means A.J. Brown, Bijan Robinson, and Tyreek Hill all dropping, while Lamb and St. Brown were our risers. Next guy up on the list, another player that we could see fade at least a little bit when the offseason rolls around. It's Christian McCaffrey, the veteran running back, like Tyreek Hill, just continues to produce. Age doesn't matter with this guy. He is consistent and plays from a fantasy standpoint with a very, very high ceiling. He is down 1 spot from 7 to 8, but still hanging on to that RB2 spot.
It's almost the exact same conversation as him. Yeah. It really is. They're unbelievably good. Nothing they've done is wrong. They're just getting a little older.
Do you want Christian McCaffrey or do you want Jahmyr Gibbs in Dynasty, Matt? Because Gibbs is next on this list. He's the RB3, and he's one of the big risers of these top guys. In fact, tied his teammate Amon-Ra for the biggest climb here in the first round, up 4 spots. Was not a first rounder last month, but he's here now, and he's the RB3. You want CMC or Gibbs?
I think I'd probably go with CMC. I mean, just more touches, slightly better offense, a little more predictable. Gibbs is fine as the 3rd. I like him quite a bit, but McCaffrey's more of an every down player.
Yeah. I saw my buddy John Bosch make a good argument on Twitter the other day. I believe he said Christian McCaffrey is his Dynasty RB1. And essentially he said, if I'm contending, there's no other running back I want more than Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, he's right.
If I'm not contending, I don't really want any running backs. Move them all. I want wide receivers or I want picks. I thought that explanation, was pretty sound from Bosch. That gets us through the first 9 players. We'll finish up the first round and get into the next group of 12, and we'll do that next.
So are you looking for a meaningful gift this holiday season that your loved ones will actually use and enjoy? Well, let me throw out a new name for you guys. That's Skylight Frame. There's so many of these holiday gifts that are just super boring to give or receive. I mean, socks, another tie, I mean, if I give my wife another robe, she's going to strangle me. So, slippers. So if you're looking for your, up your gift giving game, and I am, that's why I'm giving Skylight Frame, to your family, to your loved ones, whomever. But who is the hard to gift person? I mean, everyone has, your dad has everything, or your mom, or your daughter, or whoever. And a most thoughtful and personal gift is the Skylight digital picture frame. Skylight is a touchscreen photo frame that you can send photos to straight from your phone, and they appear in seconds. You can even preload photos before the box is open. So when it's unwrapped and plugged in, your most treasured memories will appear. I mean, think about doing that Christmas morning for your mother or whomever. Effortlessly send photos from photo to frame with free Skylight app or unique email. It's unbelievably easy to use. Setting the whole thing up takes less than a minute. Touchscreen makes it easy. You swipe right through the photos like you're on your phone. Tap to see the new photos sent. Tap the heart if you want. So all that is wonderful. It looks beautiful in your home. Photos are displayed in HD resolution. They're very clear. Looks like a real modern photo frame. Set it up in portrait or landscape. The larger 15-inch frame can actually be wall mounted. There's new color options to match any style you want. Black, white, silver, limited edition poppy, which is like an orangey red, and gold. Better than social media. It's a great private way to share your photos without posting it to the world, especially for parents who don't always want photos of their children everywhere. I understand that. Satisfaction guaranteed. We're confident you'll love Skylight. We offer free 120 days returns. It's a top-rated brand, over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. Recommended by Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and many more, to be honest with you. So as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. To get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight frame, go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/lockedon. Something you got to check out now for sure.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Matt, we were talking brand new December Dynasty ADP from Dynasty League Football. We are nearing the end of the first round reveal here. We had Jefferson and Chase at the top. No surprise there. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and A.J. Brown in the 3, 4, and 5 spots, both overall and among wide receivers. Bijan Robinson's the RB1. Couple of veterans here. Tyreek Hill at 7, Christian McCaffrey at 8, and a rookie, Jahmyr Gibbs at 9. Matt, earlier in our discussion, you mentioned a wide receiver that you would have at 6 overall, ahead of Bijan, ahead of Tyreek Hill and CMC. I'm guessing that's this guy, Garrett Wilson. He's here at 10 overall. Am I right?
You are. I think he's a phenomenal player. Of the players who could reach the Jefferson Chase level, I don't think it's all that far-fetched to say Wilson could be that next one in a true tier 1. I don't know that A.J. Brown could quite get there, or St. Brown, but I think Wilson can if everything fell right. And I'm going to take this opportunity too, because Breece Hall's right behind him, his teammate. Now, I hate putting all my eggs in the Jets basket because this is not an organization.
Scary, right?
Yeah, I don't trust the organization. Very well could be the worst offense in the entire league. But I at least trust them to draft an offensive tackle, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is back, and maybe that's enough. Because I was torn between Gibbs or Hall as my third running back, and I think Wilson would be ahead of all the running backs.
I think I agree with all of that, honestly. I do have Gibbs. I would have Gibbs over Hall slightly. I agree it's a close call. As you mentioned, Hall is the 11. And I also share your Garrett Wilson love. and would have him higher than he is here on this ADP. Round 1 finishes up with another receiver, another Dolphins receiver. It's Jalen Waddle at 12. That's the exact same spot he was in last month. So our first round gives us 2 Jets and 2 Dolphins and lots of wide receivers. We end up with a total of 4 running backs and 8 wide receivers among the top 12 players. Matt, let's go right into the second round because, like I said earlier, this is really where we see some shakeup, and it starts at the top. The first player in the second round is Chris Olave. He's up 4 spots, so he was in the middle of that of the second round last month, up to the 2.01 spot. And honestly, I kind of expected him to be a first rounder this month. So maybe this is even lower than I thought he would be.
Me too. And I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but I would take him over Waddle, who's 1 spot ahead of him.
Yep, I would as well.
Okay.
We get another running back at the 202 spot, and another player who has fallen a little bit. Travis Etienne was a first rounder last month. He's down 3 spots to the 2.02. That's 14 overall. How are you valuing Etienne in comparison to Gibbs and Hall, some of these young running backs, and Bijan as well?
Yeah, he's certainly last of that group, but
would he be in that same tier for you?
I think slightly behind. I mean,
okay, he is for me as well.
Yeah, I like not love.
When I'm debating Gibbs and Hall, and I think it's even fair to debate Gibbs and Bijan at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not factoring Travis Etienne into that conversation. So I do think he's a tier behind those guys. For me, this is a reasonable spot.
He's closer to Jonathan Taylor to me than he is to those guys.
Our third biggest riser that we'll talk about today shows up here at the 2.03 spot. Surprise, surprise, it's a wide receiver. It's Brandon Ayuk, who looks suddenly like the top threat on the in the 49ers passing game, although, of course, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle have something to say about that on a weekly basis as well. Ayuk is an exciting player, certainly a guy on the rise. Have we gotten to the point where he's being overvalued, Matt, or does this feel right to you?
No, this is right. My only concerns are, is he going to be a Niner next year? He's a free agent after the year. I can't imagine they let him go. But I think he's good enough that it's not just a, quote, system guy. He would excel in any spot as a traditional number 1 receiver.
Yep, totally agree. Devontae Smith, another young receiver, is another player on the rise as well. He's up 3 spots to the 2.04, 16 overall in our ADP. And, of course, the second Eagles wide receiver. I think this is spot on for Devontae Smith's value. I don't think he's in that first round range yet or even in consideration. I think for me, we talked about Olave and Waddle, slightly behind those guys, but not far off, certainly.
No, I think he's very dependable, safe, solid, really good football player, good situation. I'm in.
Next on the list, another running back, another rookie, Devon Achane, up 5 spots to the 2.05. As we said earlier, we saw him bounce back this past Sunday and have a couple touchdowns. Really, honestly, in mop-up duty, I thought that was kind of interesting. We saw Mostert earlier in the game. They took Tua out late in the game, but Achane stayed in. So we'll kind of see what that means for their rotation, their usage moving forward. But obviously, when he's on the field, he is producing. Does this feel right? Are you worried about injuries with Achane? Are we overvaluing this guy?
It's a little risky for me to use my second pick in the middle of the first round on a guy with this many questions. I do adore the upside. I recognize that, but durability usage has me a little concerned. I mentioned Jonathan Taylor earlier. I would put more chips in the Taylor basket. Okay.
Yeah, we have not said Jonathan Taylor's name yet. Yeah. We will do that soon. In fact, we will do that next, right after this.
So I have told you many times about our buddies over at FanDuel. And as the weather gets colder, The NFL offers stay red hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. I mean, that could be a massive favorite. All you do is put $5 on it and you get $150 back. $150 if your team wins. That's all you need to happen. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time right now than to get in on the action. It's super easy to use. The app is great. Over, under, player props, futures, spreads, etc., and many more. I mean, all kinds of creative ways to do it. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Matt, we have just a few players left in our second round ADP discussion. Second round so far has been Chris Olave, Travis Etienne, Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Smith, and Devon Achane. Middle of the second round sees a couple of wide receivers. Stephon Diggs down 4 spots to the 2.06. And DK Metcalf, who honestly I expected to be one of the significant fallers of the month.
Yeah, this one shocks me.
He's actually up 1 spot somehow. Has not played well this season. Of course, had the huge game on Thursday night. Maybe that recency bias helped his ADP here. But regardless, he's the 2.07. So it's Diggs and Achane coming together here as Diggs falls. Diggs and Metcalf. Diggs falls and Metcalf up 1 spot. I'm probably just opting for some of the young guys instead of these two at this point. We got some rookie wide receivers coming up at the end of this round, and I'm probably taking those ahead of both Diggs and DK here. 2.08 is Jonathan Taylor. You've mentioned him earlier. He's down 5 spots. And again, maybe it's that recency bias. Of course, we heard about the injury a little over a week ago, and sounds like he is going to miss significant time, maybe even the rest of the fantasy season here. Yeah. I mean, we know the story here, obviously. The contract issues, the injury, looked like he was back, and then all of a sudden he's taken from us again. So his value is trending in the wrong direction. I don't mind a buy low here on JT. I'm with you. Taylor versus Achane, Taylor versus Etienne is still a debate for me.
Yeah, I'm a little infatuated with this rejuvenated Colts offensive line and offense as a whole, with trying to stop the combination of Taylor and Richardson next year. I mean, they could run for a bazillion yards as a team.
Ooh. I mentioned some rookie wide receivers. We're getting into those right now. I know you don't like this guy.
No, not really.
Ninth overall, 2.09, Jordan Addison. He was a second rounder last month. He's here again, although he did fall 3 spots. He's down to the 2.09. Right behind him is Puka Nacua, also a faller. He's down 1 spot to the 2.10. Matt, who is your rookie wide receiver 1 at this point? We've seen almost a full season from them. We've seen breakout years from Puka Nacua, from guys like Tank Dell. Addison has been very good. JSN's starting to get there finally. Quentin Johnston
might still be JSN.
Well, it's really interesting because I think JSN was essentially the consensus rookie wide receiver 1, right? I mean, maybe somebody preferred Addison or Quentin Johnston, but those were few and far between. And now it's just a reminder of how fun this class is, because you can make a debate that it's still JSN, or that it's Addison, or that it's Nacua, or even that it's Tank Dell, right? There's a lot of options here that it could be. And like I said, that's a good thing for all of us. Spoiler alert, JSN is not in this top 24 here, but Jordan Addison is. Puka Nacua is. They're 2.09 and 2.10. Another wide receiver, not a rookie this time, 2.11, and this guy's a big riser. Michael Pittman up more than a full round, up 14 spots, essentially from the early 4th round to the end of the 2nd round. Is that warranted? You talked about that Colts offense. Pittman's been really good.
Really good. I mean, target hog, red zone guy, dependable. He is in a contract year. I can't imagine he leaves town, though. I've been a Pittman fan forever, and I often quote Matt Harmon. He's been saying Pittman's one of the most underrated players in the league, and I think he's right. I own him in so many places. I think Pittman's great.
The 2.12, Matt, is another receiver. It's Tank Dell. Last month, he was the 80th overall player, and now he is the 24th overall player. He is up 56 spots in ADP, which would be a huge, huge jump from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. That's not the case here. 1 month ago, he was 80. Now he's 24. And of course, we know now his season is over, unfortunately, but we'll try to take the injury out of it. I do want to come back to that, but is this too much here? Is this jump too much, being a top 24 player overall? And we'll get the count and see where he ended up on the wide receiver ranks here.
I don't know that it's too much of a jump. I mean, I think the insane buzz around Stroud and the Texans offense and passing game is very, very warranted. I don't know that they'll go to add to the group they have. I think they should be pretty comfortable with their group of pass catchers. Certainly not a round one guy, I can't imagine. I would take Dell over Addison because everyone knows I hate Addison. But I would take Nico over both of them.
Okay. I did the counting there. Tank Dell is the wide receiver 17, according to this data. He is above Nico Collins, although not by much. Nico shows up early in the third round, as does JSN, as does Zay Flowers. We see a lot of wide receivers here: DJ Moore, Drake London, T. Higgins, Deebo Samuel. Have a problem with Tank Dell over any of those guys?
Tank Dell over, can you give me the list again?
JSN, Nico Collins.
I would take both of them over Dell.
Zay Flowers.
Dell.
DJ Moore.
No, but close.
Drake London.
I'm still a believer. I might take London over him. I'm
Higgins.
just hoping that they have a real quarterback next year. Could go a long way. T. Higgins, yes. I think Higgins is too cheap right now.
Yeah. So it sounds like you think Tank Dell's being a little overvalued. We can expect in January, maybe that ADP falls off after we go a month plus without seeing him. But I think he's here to stay. And I do think it's a similar conversation to what we talked about with Devon Achane. One of the concerns with both of those guys coming into the league was at their size, with their frame, can they succeed in the NFL? And not, I think they both answered that question. Can they succeed? Yeah. Yes, obviously. But can they stay healthy?
Survive.
Can they stay on the field? Can they survive? And that's the question that they're going to be faced with, because both guys now have dealt with multiple injuries in their rookie seasons and missed multiple stretches of games. So hopefully we can just see them stay healthy, because they're both very, very exciting players. They both gained a ton of dynasty value. Again, Tank Dell up 56 spots since last month. Really, really wild stuff here to end the year of Dynasty ADP, the calendar year of Dynasty ADP. But we know that it never really ends, because we'll be back in January to begin our off-season ADP, and that'll be another conversation. That is it for today's show, though. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL, and I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.